Hi everyone, I'll be taking you through this lesson: inventory organizations, units of measure, calendars and flex fields. So after completing this lesson, we should be able to explain key inventory objects, sub-inventories, locators and item organizations. Should be able to describe units of measure and their classes and base units of measure, describe unit of measure conversions, and we should also be able to explain and create calendars and explain calendar best practices. And we will go through the flex fields, flex field segments and value sets. And we should also be able to describe the function of account alias and locator flex fields. So the first topic for this lesson is on inventory organizations, sub-inventories and locators. So this diagram depicts the inventory organization, which represents the inventory organizations represent the distinct entities in your enterprise and can be one of the following, like a physical entity such as a manufacturing facility, warehouse or distribution center, a logical entity such as an item master organization, which you can use to define items. And what is an inventory organization? An inventory organization is a facility where you can store and transact items. So before you can use Oracle Fusion Inventory Management, we should define one or more inventory organizations. An inventory organization can have the attributes like location, ledger, costing method, workday calendar, and items. And an inventory organization can share one or more of these characteristics with other organizations as well. This diagram depicts an inventory organization where you can store and transact items, which would consist of sub-inventories and optional locators. So what is a sub-inventory? An inventory organization can have one or more sub-inventories. So sub-inventories are unique, physical or logical separation of material inventory. Just to take an example, for storing raw materials, we could create a separate sub-inventory which we can call as raw material inventory. And for finished goods inventory, sub-inventory, or for defective materials, you could say defective goods inventory. So this is how we could create sub-inventories for logically separating the various kinds of material inventory. And in Oracle inventory, all material within an organization is held within a sub-inventory. So in case if you create an item and you want to add certain quantities for an item, you would have to add that quantities under a specific sub-inventory. So as we have just discussed, we must at least define one sub-inventory for every organization. And we can track item quantities by sub-inventory as well as restrict items to specific sub-inventories as well. Now, next one, the next topic is on locators. So what is a locator? So the sub-inventories in an inventory organization may be made up of number of can be made up of one or multiple locators. We can use these locators to identify the exact physical area where you have stored inventory items. So as we have just discussed, locator control is optional in Oracle Fusion Inventory Management. So what is a sub-inventory, which we have just discussed? It is a physical or logical grouping of inventory such as raw material, finished goods, defective material, or even obsolete material. So, as we have just discussed, sub-inventory is the primary place where the items are physically stocked. So, we must specify a sub-inventory for every inventory transaction. So, and we must define at least one sub-inventory for each organization. So, when we define sub-inventory, some of the information which we would have to enter is the unique alphanumeric name for the each sub-inventory, the status, the parameters, the lead times, and the sourcing information. So this diagram, through an example, depicts that sub-inventories are used to represent the regions within the facility designated for specific purposes. So each sub-inventory can have different attributes that control how goods are handled within that particular sub-inventory. Locator control. This diagram depicts the locator controls row, rack, and bin. So the locators are, as we have just discussed, are optional third-level structure within sub-inventories, which provide more granularity to definition of where within a facility. The sub-inventories in an inventory organization may be made up of one or more locators, as we have just discussed. So the locators basically represent rows, aisles, or bins in a warehouse. It could be a pallet location as well. You can use locators to identify the physical areas where you have stored the inventory items. Dynamic and previously defined locators. So there are, coming to the dynamic locators, they are generated during a transaction, and if it is a previously defined locator, we have to define well in advance the locators, and then they can be used. And both types of these locators use key flex fields. Sub-inventory locator relationship. So based on this, as part of this diagram, which depicts the following types of sub-inventory locator relationship. First one is the locator control, sub-inventory finished goods, and without locator control, that is sub-inventory receiving. So we can structure Oracle Fusion inventory management in such a way that some of the sub-inventories and items have locator control where others do not. So just to give an example, so the finished goods use locator control to detail a main inventory storage that could be based on aisle, row, shelf, etc. And whereas actual fulfillment of orders occurs, the goods are picked and moved from a particular locator to a particular aisle in the shipment staging area, the shipping sub-inventory. As another example, receiving might not use locator controls because the receiving dock has no rows or aisles. So the goods are removed from the truck to the dock and then moved to a raw materials sub-inventory. And if we enable locator control at item level, we must specify a locator when transacting the item into or out of the sub-inventory. So the next topic is on inventory and item organizations. There are two types of organizations. One is inventory organization and the other one is item organization. So item organizations contain only the definition of items, and we use item organizations in implementation when the storage or movement of inventory does not need to be physically or financially tracked. For example, you would use an item organization in a retail scenario if you need to know the items that are listed by and sold through each retail outlet, even though the inventory and transactions are recorded in another system. In Oracle's Sales Cloud, item organizations are used to define sales catalogs. Item organizations can be changed by the administrators to an inventory organization by updating certain attributes. But whereas we cannot change an inventory organization into an item organization. So what is an inventory organization? An inventory organization is basically used to store and transact items. So an inventory organization is associated with a business unit, legal entity, and primary ledger. And we can use inventory organizations when the storage or movement of inventory needs to be physically and financially tracked. Inventory organizations can represent facilities such as manufacturing centers, warehouses, or distribution centers. This table basically shows the difference between the item and inventory organizations. So it has 5 features, and wherein you are able to see what is available from item management point of view and what is not available from inventory organization point of view. So there is a small practice session on how to create a sub-inventory. So let us go ahead and create one sub-inventory. I'm bringing up the instance now. So let us go to the setup and maintenance on the home page. We are currently on the home page or on the springboard. So click on setup and maintenance. And out of the various offerings, select manufacturing and supply chain materials management and select inventory management as the functional area, and you would be able to see manage sub-inventories and locators. So click on manage sub-inventories and locators, and you could select the organization as 000. Click on OK. Let me select the organization as 001 and click on OK. Now let us select, let us create one sub-inventory. Say, let me create a sub-inventory with the name sub-inventory, or let me create with sub VA with the initials, and we could provide a description as well, sub-inventory VA, and you could some of the fields you could look at is the material status. We would be covering the material status in a later topic, and you could see the sub-inventory type, it is storage, and here you could see so rest of the fields, they are not mandatory attributes, so you could just select save and close. So we have created one sub-inventory, sub VA, and you could also see there are various other sub-inventories like finished goods, there are quarantine, inspection, staging, stores. There are various sub-inventories. So we have created a sub-inventory within an inventory organization 001. So earlier I was trying to create for 000. Why it is not showing up is because 000 is an item organization and it is not an inventory organization. So we can create a sub-inventory under an inventory organization. It could be 001 or 002, etc. Now click on done. Now let us go back to the presentation, and Uh, Let us go back to the presentation and proceed with the rest of the topics. Units of measure, classes, and conversions. So this diagram depicts the units of measure and unit of measure classes. So what are the unit of measures? That is dozen, liter. In what terms you want to sell a specific item? So it is defined based on unit of measures. So it basically specifies the quantity of an item. Like it could be a dozen. If unit of measure is dozen, then that means we are selling 12 quantities, that is 12 each of that particular item. And what is the unit of measure class? The various types of unit of measure classes are count, length, time, volume, mass, and area. So we can define units of measure for tracking, moving, storing, and counting items. So the units of measure is used across the various products of Fusion applications. That is Oracle Fusion Inventory Management, Oracle Fusion Product Management. That includes the product model, product and catalog management, product hub, product development, and also it is used as part of Oracle Fusion Order Management, Global Order Promising, etc. So assigning base unit of measures to UOM class. So as you could see, the UOMs, dozen, gross, unit, so they're all mapped to the base UOM, which is unit or each. And from the UOM class mass point of view, the various unit of measures could be pound, kilogram, milligram, and the base unit of measure is milligram. So this slide depicts UOM three tables, that is UOM class or mass, and UOM interclass conversion and UOM conversion. So unit of measure conversion is a mathematical relationship between two different units of measure. So suppose 16 ounces is equal to 1 pound, or 2.2 pounds is equal to 1 kilogram. So it's basically a mathematical conversion of or mathematical relationship between two different units of measure. And these are few more examples of units of measure conversion. So let us go through the demonstration on how to create an unit of measure. Let me bring up the instance once again. So I have selected the offering manufacturing and supply chain materials management, and here under the functional areas, let me select the items as the functional area and select manage units of measure. So now let me go ahead and create a new unit of measure. Click on add and let me select a unit of measure code, UOM code. I can say box of say 100. So or I'll say our box of 12, B12. Let me say box of 15. I'll say box of 15 and description as box of 15, and UOM class is I'll select as quantity. So now you would see as soon as you select the UOM class, the base unit of measure is automatically populated, which is nothing but each. And you could also see where this mapping is available. Manage UOM classes. As soon as you select, if you select, click on search, against quantity. You could see each is the base UOM name. Click on cancel, and if you select click on save, and you could select what is the conversion. So what this box of 15 mean? What is the comparison? So what is the mathematical formula? It is, if you click on manage UOM standard conversions, and if you click on the box of 15, and if you click on this add button here, you should be able to define the conversion with respect to the UOM. So box of 15, and you could say the conversion is 15 each, and click on save. So we have created a new unit of measure, and we also have defined the unit of measure conversion as well. So now that we have created a unit of measure, let us go back to the presentation and continue on the rest of the topics. So the next topic is on calendar features, uses, and best practices. So the calendars or schedules are defined by the start dates, end dates, shifts, and sequence of workday patterns. So what is a shift? So we all understand what is a start date and end date. So let us start off with shift. A shift is a period of time typically expressed in hours, and it can be defined by a start time and an end time, or a duration from a specific start time. Workday pattern. So a workday pattern is a collection of shifts for a specific number of days. So we can create time, duration, and elapsed workday patterns as well. So the workday pattern describes how a shift repeats. For example, a week is 7 days, and the number of working days is, say, 5. We can and we can also provide exceptions as well. So what is an exception? An exception is a record of a date and time that indicates a specific block of either working or non-working time, such as holiday, etc. So the calendars are global and shared. So where do we use the calendars? So a calendar models the breakdown of working and non-working time, and can be used by many business objects such as warehouses, organizations, and projects. So the calendar does not track which objects are using it. So when exceptions are made to a calendar or schedule definition, they apply to every business object that uses it. So this diagram in the slide depicts how Oracle SCM Cloud uses calendars for planning, promising, and inventory purposes. So the planning and promising collect the calendars associated to manufacturing plants and inventory organizations, and as well as the supplier shipping calendars and customer receiving calendars as well. So we will talk about how we can collect this kind of data during some of the other workshops, like planning related workshops or order management related workshop, wherein we will have a specific section on or specific topic on collections as well. They use these to determine the capacity and constraints, and to determine available dates for production, shipping, and receiving. Similarly, inventory uses calendars when determining the dates for counts as well as dates associated with supply documents such as movement requests, transfer orders, purchase orders, and work orders. So there is a small demonstration on how to create a calendar. So let us go ahead and create a calendar. So I'm bringing up the instance once again. So I'm clicking on home. So clicking on save and close. Save and close here. So it's currently selected the manufacturing and supply chains material management as the offering, and there is a functional areas called as facilities. So let us select the facilities as the functional area, and you could see on the right hand side the various tasks which are specific to calendar, which are manage facility shifts, manage facility workday patterns, and manage facility schedules. So let us select manage facility shifts. So the first task which we are going to work on is manage facility shifts. So it's taking a while to open this particular task. Okay, so let us go ahead and create a shift, create time shift. So let us provide a name, say SCM 01 shift, and provide the start time as 9 AM and say duration as 8 hours. So we are saying the shift timing is 9 to and duration is from 9, it will be 8 hours. So the shift detail type is none. So and click on save and close. So we have created a shift now, SCM 01 shift. So let us go ahead and define the workday pattern as well. So click on manage facility workday patterns task. And let us click on the plus and create the time workday pattern. So let us say it is SCM 01 pattern. And the length in days is 7 days. And let us click on the plus sign and say and define the workday pattern, that is what is the number of working days out of the 7 days. Right, so I'll say the start day is say Monday and the end day is Friday, say for example. So I'll say 5 days are the working days. So I have to map the shift which we have created just now. Search for the shift 01 and click on search. Did we save the shift which we have earlier created? Click on search. Okay, so looks like we have probably have not saved the shift which we have defined in the previous screen. Let me check once again. Manage facility shifts. So go back to the manage facility workday patterns and let us create the workday pattern. I probably have not searched for the right name. So I'll say SCM 01 pattern and click on provide the number of days as 7, which we have just discussed, 1, and end day is 5, and say the shift name is, it's probably starts with SCM and click on search. So SCM01 shift and click on OK. So what we have done is now we have defined the Workday pattern as well. Click on save and close. So now that we have defined the Workday pattern as well, we have defined shift, we have defined the Workday pattern. So now let us go ahead and define the facility schedule as well. And click on the plus sign and create a time schedule. So now SCM01 schedule is the schedule name, and we could provide a effective from date, say let us keep it January 8th, and effective end date probably 1 year from now. Let us say 4th of January 4th of 2019, and select the Workday pattern. Click on Workday pattern here and provide a sequence. In case if there are multiple patterns if you are planning to associate here, the sequence would be considered. The one with lowest sequence would be considered. So here let us select the pattern as SCM. #01 pattern which we have just created. Click on save and close. So with this we have created a schedule as well. Click on done. So now let us go back. To the presentation and continue to go through the rest of the topics. So the calendar best practices. So the calendar exceptions are global, as we have discussed earlier. So next topic is on flex fields, flex field segments and value sets. So what is a flex field? A flex field provides a means to define additional attributes which are not existing in the system. So the standard attributes, in case if the standard attributes are not meeting the requirements and you need some custom attributes, then you need to make use of these flex fields. It extends a business object with additional data fields to capture additional information. It consists of segments representing different data or values. So the various tasks contained from flex fields point of view are the manage descriptive flex fields, manage extensible flex fields, manage key flex fields, and manage value sets. So these are the important tasks which would be applicable from flex fields point of view. So there are three types of flex fields which are available. So the first one is descriptive flex field, extensible flex field, and key flex field. So what is a descriptive flex field? It is basically an optional modifiable expansion space in the user interface for entering additional information that would otherwise not be captured. To take examples, as you could see here, in case if you want to capture the type of stocking location, that is the warehouse, the stock room, the production, etc., linking to the facility and links to the facilities management team. And we could also use this for tracking additional details against any type of transactional document like shipment, receipt, miscellaneous transaction, etc., that are very important to the business. So what is an extensible flex field? So it is similar to descriptive flex fields, but with advanced capabilities or capacities such as categories. So just to give an example, The voltage may be modeled on an item to allow checks for compatibility when ordering replacement parts. And key flex field, it is a mandatory key for identifying business entities by using an enterprise. So the defined code scheme that does not require programming and where segments can represent a characteristic of the entity. Some of the examples of key flex fields are segments of your item categorization and user-friendly cross-reference to an accounting stream, and composite key that identifies an aisle, row, rack, shelf in a stocking location. So this diagram in the slide basically shows a few fields added to an order page by defining a part number key flex field. So you could see it's a part number key flex field and a descriptive flex fields in 2 segments to capture part type and sales representative information. So the Oracle application development decides which business objects are defined with flex fields, and some can accommodate descriptive flex fields and others can accommodate extensible flex fields or key flex fields. So the flex field attributes are available across the deployment in web services, that is OBI, Oracle Business Intelligence, desktop integration with ADF framework, or it is application development framework, and also in search. So any UI user interface page that represents the business object will include the flex field attributes that extend the business object. A single flex field can capture multiple attributes which you can display in the user interface as fields. So this diagram depicts some miscellaneous issues in the inventory using flex fields. So the flex field segments. So the flex field segments are made available to end users as individual fields in the application user interface. Segments correspond to the user-defined attributes of an entity. So value set. What is a value set? It is a set of valid values assigned to a flex field segment or other entity outside of flex fields. So this diagram in the slide shows a value set being used for descriptive flex field segments. So you could see the value set for type is COM, Mac, and Fern, that is computer, machinery, and furniture, and the selected value is computer. So this table shows the different types of validation along with their description. So the validation type, the format only, independent, dependent, subset, and table, and you could see the descriptions along with that. So there are predefined key flex fields in Oracle SCM Cloud like account alias, inventory locator, consigned, item categories, valuation unit, etc. So these are the 5 predefined key flex fields of part of SCM Cloud. The account alias and inventory locator key flex fields support inventory management capabilities. The consigned and the valuation unit key flex fields can be used in cost accounting functions. So the account aliases key flex field. So these are user given names for frequently used account numbers. An account alias basically substitutes for a lengthy account number, and it is easier to remember than a full account number. Aliases help users select the correct account when performing various transactions. Inventory locator key flex fields. We can use the inventory locator key flex field to capture more information about the stock locators in inventory. If none of the items has locator control, then we do not need to set up this particular flex field. So this screenshot depicts the setup and maintenance screen page and selecting the manufacturing and supply chain metals management offering, highlighting few inventory management tasks, which we have already have seen during the demonstration as well. And this screen depicts the manage account aliases page and highlights that we can use an alias to quickly reference an account by entering only few characters. And this screen depicts the manage key flex fields page and highlights the structures, manage structure instances, and deploy flex fields. So in this lesson, we have learned how to explain the key inventory objects, sub-inventories, locators, and item organizations. We also have described units of measures and their classes and base units of measure. We also have seen how to describe unit of measure conversions, and we also have discussed about shifts, workday patterns, and the schedule or calendars. And we also have discussed about flex fields, flex field segments, and value sets. So with this, we have come to the end of this particular lesson. Thanks everyone for attending this session.